Welcome to Coffee with Mr. IoT, a weekly chat with Robert Schmidt, Deloitte's chief futurist, and the builders, dreamers, founders, and wild children of the IoT universe. This podcast can also be viewed on the Coffee with Mr. IoT YouTube channel.
Hello, my name is Robert Schmidt. I'm Deloitte's chief IoT technologist, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Mr. IoT. I'm very excited today to have as my guest Jim Heppelmann, the CEO of PTC. Jim, how are you and the family doing? It's weird times. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm in the 11th week of sitting here in my home office. I kind of miss the ambiance of that nice, beautiful seaport headquarters we have in Boston, but I'm doing fine and the family's fine.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. So, Jim, weird times, you were working from home, yet business in some ways continues and in other ways changes. I think you wrote about what you call the new normal. What is that for you? What is that for our clients? Tell us a little bit about it. What's your thought on that?
Well, I mean, I think that I feel, and I know many others do too, that this way of working is something we're going to continue with, at least to a large degree, even once the offices open. And I think on one hand, we've been surprised by how productive we can be, working from home every day. Now, I'd point out most of us who say that are knowledge workers rather than frontline workers, and that's something I want to come back to. But I think, not spending time commuting, not spending time traveling, I mean, it's incredible how much you get done in a day. The bad news, of course, is the day starts right after you brush your teeth in the morning, and for me, it tends to end right before I brush them again at night, which of course is a problem. But I think it's very productive. So I think we've learned, the big winner, if you could imagine such a thing, in this whole crisis is digital. And I think that will power more digital transformations, because I think people see some stuff work really well, and then frankly, other stuff didn't work that well. And in the world of engineering software, where of course I spend a lot of my time, we have big desktop workstations, and people have, a big computer, and it's got applications and data and all that stuff on their desk at the office. But now they're not allowed to go to their desk at the office. So what do I do? And I think there's been a real wake-up call here too for SaaS, that we're really going to need technologies that make data and applications more available for people who really today have to be at the office. So I think knowledge workers and technologies like augmented reality are a big winner. And I think that SaaS and really trying to make data and applications available anywhere, anytime, on any device, and switch between device and switch between locations, I think that'll really help us with a much more mobile, agile workforce.
I'm always curious, when you lead 6,000, 7,000 people like you do, and then you suddenly get confronted with something you couldn't plan for, right? What were you doing the first few days? What did you change? I mean, you talked about people having big computers at work. Did you end up shipping those computers to people at home? But give it a little bit of an insight. How did that go for you as a CEO, both at a personal level, in terms of how did you feel about this, and what did you end up doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my standpoint as a CEO, most of our workers are knowledge workers, and most of us use laptops. So I knew that we could pretty readily transition to home, actually better than our customers. We don't have so many big workstations in our world, but our customers, in some cases, run software like our CAD software on those big workstations. So for PTC, it wasn't a huge disruption. I mean, to me, it was more about the fear and uncertainty in the employee base. Does this mean we're going to have big layoffs, and is the business going to fall apart, and will I lose my job, and so forth. So we did a lot of communication, of course, as you would imagine. But the second thing we tried to do is pivot a lot of energy and focus. We said, for example, this crisis is going to hasten the industry transition to SaaS by years. And we have a leadership position in SaaS, thanks to this acquisition we did late last year, this company Onshape. So let's put a lot more resources into Onshape. And AR is also going to get us bright light shined on it. So let's put a lot of resources into AR. And then other creative ideas, like we took one of our popular AR products called Vuforia Chalk, and we offered it for free. We said everybody can just use it. Don't worry, we'll decide later if you want to buy it. It's not a try and buy; it's just free for the period of this crisis. And it was a pretty exciting move because the level of digital collaboration happening in our chalk business went up tenfold. Augmented reality as a collaboration technology for frontline workers in factories and plants and work sites, during the COVID crisis when social distancing was implemented. So I think for us, we said, let's realize the world's going to be different, and let's be amongst the first to pivot to what it's going to be like and put even more energy, in those areas that are going to become so important, as we settle into this new regime.
So I have to ask you, you had a timeline in mind when you released Chalk to be free for a while. Have you come back on that timeline? Are you still talking about that timeline? I mean, that's got to be a conversation you have. You're just laughing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think we originally said through June. And what's happened is, of course, we've extended the timeline, or either have or will, probably through August. But what we're doing then is we're going to move into two places you can go at the end. There will continue to be a free version so that people who feel like I just wanted to use it for basic collaboration, they can continue free. And then we're going to have kind of an upsell program where we bring in more bells and whistles and important enterprise capabilities. For example, to tie into your enterprise directory service, maybe you use Active Directory or something like that. So you want to call somebody using our Chalk technology and have an augmented reality collaboration call, but you'd like to pick that name out of the enterprise directory service. Okay, well, that version of Chalk that integrates with enterprise directory services, will come with a small fee. And then, of course, there's the rest of the suite. So I think actually what we saw is, wow, if you take the friction out of the way, people are willing to try this stuff. And once they've tried it, then they're willing to keep using it. And, some amount of them will continue to use the free version, and some will, look to upgrade to the more powerful enterprise version. But, for us, it's just been a great way to introduce augmented reality to everybody. I know you promoted it as well, and thank you for that, Robert. But, Chalk is a technology that takes 5 minutes to go into production. You download it, a couple clicks, and you're making your first Chalk call, and then the light bulb goes on. Oh, I understand how you use augmented reality, for example, in an industrial business to collaborate with somebody at the factory or between people at different factories and so forth, to debug problems and mentor people, train them, what have you.
I just gotta say, Chalk is one of those techs, as you said, you gotta see it to really get it. Because the thing I always used my mom as an example, right? My mom has problems with the computer, and then I tell her, well, please point the camera at your screen. Well, and then my mom just moves around like all we do, right? And instead, what Chalk does, you can actually draw on it, right? And it sticks to whatever's drawn on in three-dimensional space. And that just sounds primitive, but it makes such a huge difference, because when someone moves, for us in a factory, this is what we used it for, as you said, right? But we can now go and tell a factory worker, hey, please point at the machine. And then we circle a panel on the machine. And when the factory worker walks halfway around the machine, that panel actually remains marked. It's fantastic. It's really fascinating. And this is where AR comes in.
Thanks. I mean, just real quick, the way that works is we're applying computer vision against the video stream and constructing a 3D model of the space that the distant user is in. And so when we make a mark, we're not making the mark on the screen, as you said, we're actually taking the mark back until it intersects with the 3D model. For example, the panel part of the 3D model, and we're sticking it there. And therefore you can make marks all over the place and walk around, and they continue to stick. So yeah, it's a powerful concept.
So Jim, one of the things I've always appreciated and loved interacting with you as a CEO is you're not just a CEO running a company, but you're super passionate about technology. I see this when you come in and you talk with your product managers. You're like, I don't know, you're like as deep into tech as they are at times. I gotta believe, actually, you might have been excited about some of these things that are fast forwarding now, such as augmented reality, such as SaaS. Was this something where you thought, I'm actually really excited about this?
Yeah, I mean,
not how it happened and not why it happened, but that you could go there.
I don't ever want to be accused of saying the crisis is a good thing, but many people have heard the saying. I think it's sometimes attributed to Winston Churchill, which is a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And so, my opinion was, you're right, this is a terrible crisis, and like I said, this is the 11th week sitting in this little office at home, and I'm going stir crazy. But, and of course, many people have much worse situations, so I'm thankful even for that. But I did say early on, this actually works better than I thought it would. And I don't think we're going to go back. So let's imagine, what the new world would be, and let's try to optimize it, because while parts of it work well, collaboration with factory workers doesn't work so well when you're not allowed to go there. So what do you do? And so, yeah, I did get excited, and I sent out a lot of emails, even to the entire company, saying, this is a moment for us, and we're gonna capture it. We're gonna try to be aggressive and position our company to really gain momentum during this downturn. Now, the downturn is going to hurt us too. Not that badly, but certainly it's going to hurt the company in terms of our sales momentum and so forth. But I just think that, some companies will retrench dramatically. And I wanted my company to lean forward and say, no, this is a moment for us to really try to position ourselves, because we're working on the right things. If you think about a new normal where people travel less and work distributed from all over more, it makes PLM more important. It makes SaaS more important. It makes augmented and virtual reality more important. So, we're fortunate that we're working on things that are becoming not less important, but more important. So let's really double down and push hard on it.
I want to shift a little bit and bring some of the interesting conversations you get to be part of that we aren't. You're a CEO, you get to mingle with other CEOs. I'm sure you have had conversations in that room. What are some of the things that you talk about that we wouldn't necessarily think about on a day-to-day basis? I know you talk about the economy, you talk about those kind of things, but what are the things that sort of like you're privy to, that you've insights to? I'd just love to get a little bit behind the scenes for what that looks like for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly one thing is liability, which has all CEOs scared to death. If I either require or even encourage people to come back to work, and then people end up getting this terrible virus, and they claim they got it at work, and because I made them come back, then is my company liable? Now, I think this applies to every company out there. Anybody who has people working, most factories have kept going. So what if those production workers get sick, and God forbid, what if they die, right? PTC doesn't have factory workers, but we certainly have plenty of other, mostly knowledge workers. So like on one hand, if you're going to force people to come back to the office, then you really have to think about layer after layer after layer of protection and safeguard. And so one of the things PTC decided is, let's just let them stay home for a long time, because I don't really want to invest money to put plexiglass barriers between every desk and to rearrange the office furniture. And I don't really want to go to work if I have to wear a mask all day and sit by myself. I just as soon sit at home and not wear a mask and get rid of the plexiglass. So I do think that it's sort of a trade-off between how do you get the company more productive, but without spending too much and doing too many crazy things in the name of, personal protection and ultimately liability protection.
One of the things that's also changed for PTC is you had LiveWorx. I renamed it not to VirtualWorks. I know that's not the marketing name, and your marketing person might not like it, but you've taken LiveWorx virtual. How is that going to go? What do you expect? I know you've had over 10,000 people register for it. You're not going to be able to be on the stage anymore. Are you going to miss people, having people around you? I know I do. I'm sure you do too. Yeah. But what's VirtualWorks going to be like?
Well, first of all, VirtualWorks is going to be great. It's going to be one day, and it's going to be a series of really 9 back-to-back sessions that will also be recorded and so forth. So I think we're going to have record attendance. One of the great things about digital is you actually can draw in a lot more, because it doesn't require the commitment to travel and airfare and hotel rooms and stuff like that. So we're going to have record attendance.
And it's free.
Yeah, it's free. And I think we're going to have really great content. Definitely, like yourself, I'm going to miss some of the excitement of interacting face-to-face with people. I get a lot of energy actually from meeting new clients and from seeing clients maybe that I've known for years and engaging in discussions about the projects and so forth. That's a little harder to do in a digital format. But I think in terms of, helping the ecosystem of customers and partners and analysts that live in and around PTC, I think this is going to do what LiveWorx always does, which is collectively take us to that next level of thinking. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to it. It's a day I marked on my calendar. And so it's just going to be a question of how long can I sit at my desk. So that's the biggest thing I've seen with these day-long things. So Jim, I want to talk to you about one thing, and this is going to be for when we come back to work. You talked about Seaport, you talked about your new building there, and you have a whole floor dedicated to showing solutions and so forth. But you have one area that I was hoping you could talk a little bit about. It comes, I believe, after concept at MIT. It's the experience piece there. What do you do there? Can you introduce us to that? Tell us about that. I just find it such a fascinating concept, and was so excited to see it.
Yeah, it's this area is called the Reality Lab, and it really is run by young professionals who joined us not too long from the famous MIT Media Lab, and so they constructed their own lab at PTC at our headquarters to really explore physical and digital coming together in an industrial setting in very innovative new ways. And where it's really leading us, by the way, is to a concept called spatial computing. Now, you could say that IoT makes things virtual, assets and machines and so forth, products. And augmented reality, I would argue, is a way to virtualize not knowledge workers, but frontline workers, so that we can both supply them with digital information and get digital information back from them. So what spatial computing does is says, hey, if I think about a factory or a plant or a work site, it's full of machines and it's full of people. And rather than think about those things individually, let's think about them collectively in a space, in a three-dimensional space. So now I start thinking, wait a minute, there's a shape to the factory and the shape of the machines and people, and there's lots of motion, sometimes machines moving, people moving. And I want to understand all of that virtually. I want to be able to virtually go to that space and look around and see what's going on. And I want to see with my eyes and hear with my ears, data, and be able to interact with real machines and real people. So one of the things we're trying to do now, and we're hard at it, and you might see some of this at LiveWorx, is we're beginning to virtualize the Reality Lab as a way to show you the concept of virtualizing a factory or a plant, if you will, work site in general, with spatial computing. By the way, we released a product that everybody should go check out. I think it's, you'll find information about it on our website. The product's called Vuforia Spatial Toolbox. And it really is this combination of 3D and IoT and AR and VR to which you can apply AI. And Vuforia Spatial Toolbox is released as open source, something PTC hasn't traditionally done. But we think this is such a big idea that it's kind of bigger than PTC. And we really feel like this is one of those opportunities to bring together a community and have people really both use and contribute back to this concept, and let PTC kind of be the shepherd of it, as you see with so many open source products. So I think this idea of spatial computing is a great big idea. And in the post-COVID world, it's perfect. You don't need to go to a physical site to understand everything that's happening at that physical site and even affect what's happening, to optimize the work of machines and people.
It's funny when you talk about the digital twin and the virtual in the virtual. We are working on the next version of the virtual factory for Deloitte with DubDub, and the theme is digital twin. So not only are we going to have a comic book where DubDub is going to get recalled and going to be really jealous of its digital twin because it's so much better, but if you think about it, so that's the comic book theme. I'm giving something away here, but the whole idea is that there's a digital twin. So now we're in a virtual environment showing something virtual. The irony wasn't lost on us when we talked about this, and it's great to, we're going to take a look at the spatial toolbox. So Tell me about this area that you also talked about, because it's not just an experience area, it's not just a reality lab, but there's also special rules around this, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not a top-down environment, it's actually very much of a bottom-up feeding ecosystem and structure. Tell us a little bit about that, and how does that work for your executives that's different too when it's not the same way as it was before? What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, this reality lab, whether it's physical or virtual, it involves a set of very smart people, and we give them a research budget, and we kind of say, do whatever you want, just try to make it applicable to challenges industrial companies have. But that's about the requirement right there. Is try to solve industrial problems, and then we let them do whatever they want. And the idea of the reality lab, again modeled after the media lab at MIT, is that people are working there and you can walk in anytime you want and they'll show you what they're working on. So one of the phrases that they have on the wall is demo or die. You should always be able to demonstrate what you're working on. So don't ever get lost in a mini-month project in between demos, but kind of do quick, short iterations to take an idea and make it better. And a customer who was here a month ago can walk back in today and impromptu will give them another demo and show them the concepts and really show them how fast this technology is moving. So I think it's a cool concept to be able to sort of walk into a sandbox where people are actually writing code, interrupt them and say, can I see your latest build? Can you tell me what you're working on? And can you show my customer here what's going on? Because he traveled all the way here and would love to see the latest thinking. Now, of course, we'd like to virtualize that so that the same interaction could happen without people buying that airplane ticket or a hotel room.
How often did you walk in there pre-COVID? How often did you find yourself there?
I mean, almost every day, to be honest. I certainly was their biggest fan and one of their biggest, if you want to call it that, one of the biggest users of that reality lab. And I think they love having a CEO who comes in and says, hey, Valentine, I brought it up. It's a great big automotive OEM, and they'd like to understand what you're doing, and his eyes would get really big, and the team would jump into motion. So I love it. I think it's actually a great way to, because these young employees working in the lab, they're not too constrained, but on the other hand, they know they need to show things, and they're getting constant feedback. Not just from me, but from the clients that myself and other PTC people bring in there. So a lot of times they're learning, they show something to a client, excited, asks a lot of questions. Could I do this? Could I do that? And suddenly their own direction changes a little bit in terms of what the lab's developing, because that feedback affected their thinking. So it's a great innovation concept, and really cutting edge ideas that nobody else is really thinking about. And I encourage you to check some of it out on our website. Again, Vuforia Spatial Toolbox.
Vuforia Spatial Toolbox. I'll for sure make sure I'll go there. Jim, I really appreciate you being on there. I want to close with a personal question. Once things open up, not when and how, but once things open up, what's one or two things that you're really looking forward to doing again?
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to being back in the office. I'm one of the people who wants to go back sooner rather than later, because I miss the social interaction. I miss the buzz. I miss being able to just walk over and talk to somebody. I miss even seeing people and knowing who's in today and who's not. The other thing I miss is I miss lunch with my assistant, and I miss dinner with clients and sometimes colleagues. I did that a lot because there were so many restaurants around our headquarters, and I really kind of enjoyed that social interaction. And you get a lot of ideas from talking to people, like, you and I might have dinner together, and by the time the dinner's done, we both have a lot of new ideas. So I miss that. I think in a way, these virtual meetings, they're a little too formal. You don't just accidentally chat somebody up. You got to kind of schedule it and get it on the calendar. And so it's just different. I think it puts too much formality in the day-to-day interaction I like to have with people in a more informal manner. So I look forward to getting back to that, and certainly hope we do. Hope that's still part of the new normal.
I do too. I am looking forward to being back out in Boston again and grab a lobster on a bun. So, so with that, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate you making the time with everything that's going on to chat with me. And for everybody who watched, thank you for watching. If you missed any of today's show or previous shows, check out our playlist on YouTube or the podcast. And Jim, what did I miss? Go for it.
Well, no, I want to thank you too before you signed off, Robert. You know, you're a good friend of myself and PTC, and Deloitte's a great partner. So we appreciate the partnership, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to interact with you and your circle of friends and acquaintances.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Coffee with Mr. IoT. To subscribe or to listen to more episodes, search for Coffee with Mr. IoT in your favorite podcatcher, or find us online at deloitte.com/us/coffee with Mr. IoT. To watch the video version of our show, go to YouTube and search Coffee with Mr. IoT.